I'm the storyteller, and my stories must be told. I have many stories, tales for both the young and old. I have many voices to describe many places. Many names have I, and many faces. In Russia I am Ivan, in Sweden I am Jan. In Germany I'm Johann, in America I'm John. From my many travels I have gathered these tales to teach you good sense when all else fails. Sometimes there are tears, sometimes there is laughter, but always are happily ever after.
Long ago and far away, near a small village, there stood, half hidden among the trees, a broken-down old cottage. Here lived a peddler called Jack, with his wife and 2 children. Now Jack was a good, kind-hearted man who loved his family dearly. But sadly, he was not a very clever peddler, so the family were very poor. No matter how hard Jack tried, there was never enough food in the house, and he often had to go without. Early each morning, Jack said goodbye to his family and set off for the nearby market with his tray filled with pins, laces, ribbons and threads. Sometimes he would be stopped on the road by a woman wanting to buy something. Jack would show her his tray, and the woman would offer him 2pence for the ribbon she wanted. "I'm afraid it costs 3pence, Jack would say. But when he saw that the poor woman didn't have enough money, kind-hearted Jack would just give her the ribbon. And away he would walk without taking any money at all. When Jack arrived at the market, the stalls were already filled with delicious fruits and vegetables. How he would dearly like to take something tasty home to his family. Jack would take up his place, and soon women would come up to buy ribbons or lace. Jack would show them his wares, but either they would chatter away to him and then forget to pay, or else, knowing how kind-hearted Jack was, they would bargain with him and not pay enough. Poor Jack was just too good-natured. And at the end of the day, if he was lucky, he might have a few coins in his pocket. But that didn't stop him giving something to a hungry beggar. When Jack returned home, weary from his day's travel, his wife would greet him and ask him how much he had made. "I gave some to a beggar. We're poor, but he was starving." But his wife would sigh, Oh, what will become of us? When winter came, it was very bad. Day after day it rained. And Jack couldn't go out peddling. He could do nothing but stay indoors and wait. One evening, Jack was watching his wife put the children to bed. And wondering if it would ever stop raining, when his wife showed him his son's shoes, which were full of holes, and his daughter's dress, which was in rags. "It's no good, Jack. You better find another job, or we'll be starving soon." Poor Jack knew she was right. That night, as his wife slept, Jack lay there and worried. He worried about his children's tattered clothes. He worried about the empty larder and the leaking roof. Oh, what was he going to do? At last, Jack fell asleep and began to dream. He saw a busy market square he'd never seen before. Suddenly a voice cried out, "Jack, Jack, walk south for 3 days, and you will come to this town." Then Jack saw there was a cross in the square, and the voice cried out again, "Jack, go and wait by the cross, and you will hear news of great fortune." Then the dream faded, and Jack woke up. Suddenly he felt happy and full of hope. The next morning he told his wife all about his dream, but she would not listen. She was very angry that there was only stale bread for breakfast. Jack was so excited about his dream that he paced up and down, but his wife would have none of it. "Jack, stop dreaming. Go and get a job." So Jack went off to a nearby farm and asked the farmer for a job. But the farmer had no work for Jack. Poor Jack. What was he going to do? That night he went sadly to bed and finally fell into an uneasy sleep. Again, Jack began to dream. And again he saw the cross. And the voice cried out, "Jack, do as I say. Wait by the cross and you will hear news of great fortune." This time, Jack made up his mind to go, and his wife, seeing him so determined, agreed. She packed up some dry bread for his journey. And then took out her last penny. "Here, Jack, take this, and let's hope you find good fortune." Poor Jack didn't want to leave his family, but he knew he must go. His wife gave Jack some ribbons to sell. Then he said goodbye to his family. On and on Jack walked. He walked all day until his feet ached and his legs felt leaden. As night drew near, Jack could walk no further. So he crawled under a fallen tree, and despite the cold and damp, it was not long before he was fast asleep. Early the next morning, Jack set off once more. He had never been so far from home before, but he knew he must go on. On he walked all day. Then, on the third morning, just as Jack was giving up hope, he saw over the brow of the hill a small town. He hurried on. And there it was, the market, just as he had seen it in his dream. And then Jack caught sight of something else. He hurried forward. There was the cross. He looked eagerly around. He watched the people as they walked to and fro, and he waited. But though the market was very busy, no one came up to Jack, or even looked his way. All day he waited by the cross until the sun went down and the evening grew chilly, and all the people had gone. Tired and dejected, all Jack wanted to do now was sleep. With no money to stay at the inn, Jack looked around. Finally, seeing an empty cart, he quickly climbed in. Jack was awoken by the sound of chattering voices and busy feet. For a moment he wondered where he was. Then he remembered. Perhaps today he would hear good news. In the square, the stallholders were already busy setting out their wares. No one took any notice of Jack as he walked slowly over to the cross. Day broke. And Jack waited. And waited. Still no one spoke to him. He ate the last of his bread, and that night, chilled to the bone, poor Jack crept under a stall and fell asleep in the straw. Finally, the day came when Jack could wait no more. He had no money, no food, and still no one had spoken to him. He looked around the square for the last time. He knew he must leave soon, or he would not have the strength to walk home. Sadly, Jack walked away, when who should stop him but one of the stallholders. "Good day," he said. "I've been watching you. Pray tell me, who are you waiting for?" Jack, being a simple soul, smiled and said, "I had a dream. A voice told me that if I came here and waited by this cross, I would hear news of great fortune." At this, the stallholder began to laugh. He laughed and laughed. "That's funny, because I too had a dream the other night. I saw this tumble-down cottage, and a voice said that if I travelled 3 days north, I'd come to a village, where I would find a cottage belonging to a poor peddler. The voice said that close to his cottage grew a large tree, and that under this tree was buried a great fortune. But I'm not so stupid, I believe in dreams." Jack was overjoyed when he heard this, and away he hurried. Jack walked and walked. He did not stop to eat or drink. At times he was so tired he could barely walk. But he did not give up. At night, he fell down by the roadside, so tired he felt he would never get up again. But he dreamt of the tree where the treasure was buried. And so the next day, he struggled on. Then at last, he came in sight of his cottage. He stopped, for there was the tree. He wasn't dreaming. He was home at last. Half running, half walking, Jack stumbled into the cottage. And collapsed on the table. "Jack, what's the matter?" cried his wife, and she quickly ran to get him some water. "Tell me what happened." But Jack just jumped up, and picking up the spade, he ran out of the door. He stumbled out towards the tree. His wife and children hurried after him. His wife feared he had quite lost his mind. And Jack did indeed look possessed as he muttered and stabbed at the ground with the spade. He began to dig. "Oh," thought his poor wife, "Jack has gone quite mad." Still Jack dug, deeper and deeper. The children watched curiously, as down and down he dug. Then the spade struck something hard buried in the soil. And there it was. A heavy wooden chest. They hurried back to the cottage with the chest. Jack wasted no time and flung back the lock. They could not believe their eyes, for the chest was filled with precious ornaments, jewels, and many, many pieces of gold. Jack's wife couldn't believe it. Jack's dream had come true. The children stared in amazement. Never again would they go hungry. Now they would always have plenty to eat. All this treasure was theirs, and it had been outside their own front door all the time. Jack soon found a new house for his family. They'd never seen anything quite so grand. This house had no holes in the roof or cracked windows. But Jack never took his good fortune for granted, and whenever he saw a hungry beggar, he always invited him in. Jack's wife would prepare some delicious food and give it to the grateful man. When the beggar at last had eaten his fill, Jack would make sure that he did not leave without a warm coat. And a purse full of money. And Jack continued to share his good fortune with others for the rest of his life.